what I think a lot of people relate to when they think about culture within a company, and especially a startup, right? So you might have seen some of these places before. This is Google in Zurich with the famous slide. And actually, I've forgotten some of these, but this is New York. So pick your New York-based startup. Could be Foursquare. This is Google in Zurich. This is Google in Zurich. This is Twitter, obviously. This is another one in New York, but I forget. Anyway, but the thing is that all of these, you missed the pictures.
Yeah, we want one of those.
I think you're not doing too badly. What do you think?
So the thing is that I say this isn't culture at all.
Thank you.
This is fun.
Yeah.
This is cool. This is nice. It's great for media. Okay? I mean, that slide gets a lot of attention in the media. And recruitment to a certain degree. Recruitment in the media sense. Because you get in the news, right? People think you're cool, right? Food is a great attractor, right? But do you know the real reason for free food?
To keep you working more because you don't get out of the office to waste time on work.
Absolutely. I mean, do the economics of the cost of free food to the company, right? It's much, much, much more interesting to keep people in the building, right? So they have less time for lunch, and also they talk to people they work with about work most of the time.
And they stay up late because there's food.
Then the dinner, I remember, and I don't know how it is today, but I remember, there was a time at Google, until everybody started complaining, I guess, that dinner didn't start until 7, right? Which is reasonable dinner hour. So if you wanted the free dinner, you had to stay until 7. You couldn't leave at 5 or 6, right? So, I mean, this is pretty smart. Now, Google has exceptional food, right? And actually, I was at, I was at Dropbox. And if you walk into the lobby of Dropbox in San Francisco, behind the reception, there's a big flat screen. And the pictures on the flat screen are food pictures from their cafeteria. And they're beautiful pictures if you like food. But, this has a purpose, right? I mean, all of these things have a purpose, right? So, it gets to be 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, it's like, yeah, let's take a break and shoot some pool, right? It keeps people there, it keeps people engaged, and it's fun and it's media, but I say it's not really the foundation of what a culture is. The foundation of what a culture is what the founders determine, decide, implement at the very, very early stages of a company of how the company is going to run, right? How the company is going to feel on a day-to-day basis as somebody working at that company and not as somebody playing pool at that company, okay? So this is a quote from a successful American company. Sorry for the American examples. Does anyone know what it is? By any chance? It's
mission statement or something?
No, the company. I mean, it's probably really hard to guess.
Insert random name then.
Yeah, insert random name. So it's Netflix, okay? And I think Netflix by far is one of the best examples of culture that you can find and learn about. Okay? There may be better examples, but in terms of what's available on the internet that has some really, really interesting material, it's Netflix culture. And all you have to do is go to SlideShare and type in Netflix culture, and you'll get the 100 or 120 slide deck of the Netflix culture presentation, and it's excellent. Okay, so if you want to look at one thing about culture after this, look at that. And I'll come back to it in a minute. But these things, these examples that I want to show you are what I think is, healthy, important, valuable culture items. Does anybody know what this is in terms of the company?
It's
Yeah.
not for children.
Yahoo.
No, it's a company. It's a tech company.
Yahoo.
Huh?
Yahoo.
No. The only thing maybe you might know is this. It says Monster World if you can't read it.
Pixar.
No, it's Wooga. Do you know Wooga? Okay.
The game console.
It's a game company. It's based in Berlin, so it's kind of like Zynga in a sense, with less drama. So the next examples that I'm going to show you are all from Wooga. Okay. So this is a gaming company, right? It needs to be creative. This is a space in an office at the company, right? This makes sense, right? It wouldn't make sense at other companies, right? But here it makes sense. You need people to think creatively and to have that kind of stimulation, right? This is something that I find very, very interesting. A lot of companies today, especially startups, talk about transparency, right? Did any of you see the post or the article? I'm going to forget the name of the company. I want to say it's Buffer. You know Buffer? It's to post on different social medias over time, right? Something like that.
They release the money, right? That they're giving to the people.
That's exactly. They posted everyone's salaries. And so everyone in the company knows everyone's salaries, which is the extreme of transparency, right? And of course, we could talk about this for the next 2 hours, and we're not going to. But the point is that transparency must be a deep-rooted value at Buffer. And so they said, well, what's the most transparent we can be? Let's tell everybody everyone's salaries. This to me is a different version of transparency, a little bit easier to stomach. Okay, but still something quite unique in the sense that you can go to anyone's team meeting, any group, any project, function, whatever, and find out what they're doing. That's pretty cool, right? Because most companies, those meetings are closed. Could you imagine walking into, a meeting in most companies? Like, hey, I just want to check out what's going on here. Right? Who are you? Get out.
So you mean that any person from the street can actually...
No.
From
Sorry. Yes. From the company.
The next stage is from the street.
From the street, right? Who knows? User experience, but no. This is inside. Okay, but I think that's pretty cool for transparency. A lot of people talk about, and more, especially I will say, your generation, and I think I'm right now because I'm of the older generation now. But young people, let's say millennials, okay, are very, very interested in personal development. At least that's what the books say. Okay, but it's also what the people say when they're in interviews, and when you give people in interviews a chance to ask their own questions, many times they'll say, what do you offer in terms of personal development? How will working here help my career? Okay, and some companies are doing very interesting things around this. I personally think that, of course I'm biased, but Google established something many years ago that is really, really interesting. It's called G2G, so Googler to Googler. And anybody at the company could propose any type of training or workshop or activity or whatever to other people at the company and say, come and check it out. Learn how to dance samba or cook an egg or, learn Excel, right? Or Google spreadsheets or whatever. So this gives people a chance to do peer-to-peer development, which is really, really interesting. And this is, again, Wooga and something similar, right? So they call it 5 minutes of fame, and basically people can propose themselves to come and give a talk, right? And say, I'm gonna talk about this, anybody can show up, okay? And that's pretty cool because it gives people a chance to talk about stuff that they're excited about, that they're interested in, and bring other people together to learn more about what they're doing or learn something new, okay? I love it when you put up a slide and you forget what the slide was there for. Yes, feedback, okay? This is something else that's critically important, and at this point in the presentation, you might be thinking to yourself, where's this guy going? Because I thought we were talking about culture and I'm not sure where feedback fits in. But to me, feedback is a really critical part of establishing culture. Because again, and I will state this millennial issue, is that time has changed. Younger people expect different approaches in terms of management, and something that younger people want is much more and much more frequent feedback than we used to have in the past. And I learned this myself in a very difficult example in performance evaluations. Because at Google, as you can imagine, the performance evaluation method or process was quite heavy in the sense that it required a lot of time and a lot of investment because you had individual evaluations, you had to evaluate peers, and then the managers took all that, evaluated the individual. And it was a very heavy process, but I liked it because it gave me the chance to really think about how to position the feedback to individuals and hopefully help them move forward. But the reaction that I got, not from everyone, but from some people, was, why the hell did you wait so long to tell me? Because you have, the performance evaluation process usually is either every 6 months, a light version, and every 12 months, a heavy version. But the response from some people is, why didn't you tell me this sooner? And it's a really, really important point that holding back on feedback helps no one at all. And that feedback needs to be given very, very frequently. And it's something definitely to keep in mind how you encourage that and how you drive that process within your startup. Which leads to performance evaluations. And every time I put this slide up, first of all, I should really find a better slide because I hate the image. But every time I put the slide up, I fear that talking to startups, they're like, oh no, you sound like IBM or Walmart or whatever now, like just stop. Again, think back to what we said at the very beginning. What you put into place now will determine so much of how you operate your company going forward, okay? And performance evaluations can have a huge impact on individual development, but also will help you quite a lot in terms of how you determine performance bonuses, promotions, and of course compensation. Because as you grow and as you start to make money, people are going to want more money. They're going to want more responsibility or want more promotion. And how are you going to deal with that? Because you don't want to deal with it in an arbitrary sense, right? I like you, you get promoted, right? I like you, you get more money. And you don't, right? but it can't be like that. It needs to be well thought out, and people need to understand how they're going to be measured, okay? Idea generation and involving people, and we talked about this again in the OKRs in terms of driving something from a bottom-up perspective. We talked a little bit about 20% project. I think the way that the 20% time at Google was implemented was super interesting, and it's been in the media for years and years and years and years. I have no idea how it works now, but I think at one point in the evolution of it, they instituted a system that I thought was really, really unique in the sense that, okay, when you have a small company, you could have this idea of 20% time, and people can do something, in their free time, basically. Because remember, 20% time is the 20% of 120%. Okay, let's just get that clear. I think people thought that everybody at Google had a day off to do whatever they wanted, but I wouldn't really go that far. I'm on tape, but fine. The thing is that as you grow to be bigger, it's hard to keep track of all this, right? So do your 20% projects really make any difference? Do they make an impact? How can you get resources for a 20% project if that's what you need? And so, of course, some kind of system needs to be built around it. And the system that was built was an interesting peer-to-peer system in the sense that all the ideas were there in some kind of idea database or whatever, and you had to get peer support to vote those ideas. And the ideas that rose to the top were then evaluated by the leadership to say, oh, well, this idea has a lot of support, maybe we should invest in it, maybe we should allocate resources to it. And it's important that you can't just say, here's free time, do your own stuff, or have your own ideas. It's important that you're able to follow that and encourage the ideas that make sense, that might actually do something significant for the company. So, besides performance evaluations, values are a difficult topic for startups because it's something that most people say, well, we kind of know what we value, but that's as far as it goes, right? And people are also scared of values because they think that it's something that you put on a coffee cup or a poster, and that's just silly. And I agree for the most part. I would be very scared if any of you walked away this afternoon and ordered coffee cups with values on it. This is scary to me. But, I think that they're hugely important. I think that you have to have these discussions, and if you haven't had them, you need to have them right away about, what matters to your company. Because the longer you wait to do this, the more difficult it's going to be to set the values and then embed them in the culture by action. So the best way to describe this is for me to give you some examples, okay? So tell me whose values these are. This is the easy one. The only reason you might know that so quickly is either the colors or this.
No, it's the mission statement because.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Okay, so I need to move that up a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. The mission statement gives it away. But if you consider the values, the only one that you probably know, this is my guess, but I think I'm right, is don't be evil.
And there is Google on the bottom. It's very easy to spell.
Okay, fine. Yeah, it's over there too. So I made it super easy. But if you take away the color, and you take away the mission statement, and you take away the Googles, right? In the headlines, which is the only one that you've ever heard?
Don't take sex for granted.
What?
The fifth.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said something else.
Yeah. Something like don't take sex for
Thank you
granted.
very much. That's very cool. Is that valid?
That's a nice sentence.
Okay, fine. I'm going to tell you what I want you to say because you're not helping me.
I know where you're pushing us.
Okay, I'm pushing you to just tell me that that's the only one you've ever heard. Okay?
Yeah.
From Google, not in life, right? The only thing that you could say, oh, I've heard that as a Google, statement, is don't be evil, right? If you've heard some of the other ones, then you're too intricate and close to Google. But the point is that most people on the outside don't necessarily hear these or know these or relate to these. But having worked there for so many years, I can tell you that all of this is in the blood of the company, that the company lives in and breathes this, and not because it's on a wall, right? Not at all because it's on a wall, but because of all the actions that are taken in many of the previous things that we talked about, right? So if you, where is it? There's something about data here that I lost. Somebody find it before I do. Why can't I find it? Yeah. So we're a quantitative company that uses data to make decisions, right? So anybody could say that. Any of your companies could say that, right? But I know that's so real because at Google you just couldn't get anything done without the data. That's what it means, right? And it's not because it was on the poster, it was because it was reality, right? And that's what the values have to be. They have to be your reality, right? And so if you discuss this and you say, what are our values as a company, it's not about just putting words on paper, it's about saying, well, how do we act? How do we, work? Right? The first one, which is the example I should have gave because it's so close to the top and therefore easier to find. We hire great people and expect a lot from them, also because that's what I did. It's every company says we hire great people. Every company says we hire the best. I don't know, maybe you have an example of a company that doesn't say that. But I've never talked to a company that says we hire losers, right? Or we hire B players, right? But the thing is that, first of all, it's impossible to hire the best at every company, right? Because then there wouldn't really be any best, right? But everybody says it, but very few companies actually do it. Because hiring the best requires a massive amount of effort, right? You can't just say, we're gonna hire the best and I'm only gonna take the best people. Because if you're really, really serious about it, then you have to put in everything that's necessary to attract the best people to the company and to evaluate the people that you think are the best to make sure they're the best, and then to keep the best people. So it's really difficult, but I can tell you 100% that that's what we did. Okay, enough. Okay, I'm not going to ask you which company it is because it's also written at the top. Do you know Zappos? If you don't, it basically started as an online shoe company, became a huge success, was acquired by Amazon for some billion something. Okay, but the point here is that I don't actually know anything about Zappos besides that it was a success and the founder and CEO was a very inspirational speaker. But I do know, for what reason I don't know, that Zappos is known for customer service. I've never actually ordered any shoes from Zappos because it's in the US. But I know that, right? And why would you know that? Not because it's on the list. You know that because that's what everybody talks about, right? In terms of their company being known for service. It's so well known that everybody talks about that, right? And they put it here and they made that happen, okay? I told you I'd come back to Netflix. It's a horrible slide, but it's great information. So this is a slide from that very, very long deck I told you about on SlideShare. And I think this is really, really interesting because you saw the Google values, you saw a couple of the Zappos values. This, to me, is Netflix saying, we want to work with people who embody these 9 values. So are these the values of Netflix? I don't know. But they wrote them in terms of hiring, and I think it's very, very interesting. The way that they wrote this is basically, you. So everybody at Netflix, they want to check these boxes, right? Very, very interesting, not only from a cultural perspective, because you have to fit the culture, which so many companies have a difficult time describing, right? As a recruiter, you always have to find somebody that fits the culture, but understanding what fitting the culture means is extremely difficult, because most of the time it's, well, they fit us, they fit the team. We like each other. But this is what fitting in the culture means to Zappos, and I think a lot of work went into this to define what that means. And again, you can look this up later, but I think it's super interesting. That's my speed talk on culture, because I wanted to make sure we kept on time. But there's one thing that I want to leave you with about that, is that it's all fine for me to stand here and talk to you for half an hour about culture and show you some of these examples, but what really matters is thinking about it and putting this stuff into place, because I think people don't think about the tenets or the core pieces of their culture until too far along in the evolution of their company, and then they lose the opportunity to really embed some of this, right? So if you go back to Google for a minute, and I'll tell you some stuff about the hiring, right? So the hiring process at Google for a recruiter is probably one of the worst processes that you can live, because it's so complex, time intensive, and at times frustrating. But it was that way for a very, very particular reason, which was, again, to make sure that we really did hire the best people. And this notion of hiring the best people and what the best meant to Google was extremely clear from the very, very, very beginning, okay? And you can find information about this on the internet, and people tell stories about it, or it's in books and all kinds of stuff. But Larry and Sergey, as founders, had very, very clear ideas around the type of people that they wanted to hire, and they really stuck to it. And I think that when you think about hiring and culture and what people bring to your company, personally, I believe, and of course I'm biased because it's my business, but it's one of the most important, if not the most important, criteria to succeeding as a business, right? And when I talk to investors today, it's also very interesting to hear from them about the success stories in their portfolios, and almost all of them universally will come and say, you know, the best companies in my portfolio got hiring right at the very beginning, right? And it's very, very interesting to see how this evolves in startups, because in the beginning, you know, when you're 2-3 people, a lot of it is just like, you know, do I want to spend 24 hours a day sitting next to this person, right? But as soon as you go beyond, you know, the 2 or 3 people and you hire your first employee, it's like, well, what do I really want? Because every person that you bring in is going to make such a significant impact on the company, and that's why, you know, this culture piece, from the performance view on it and the values view on it, and all the things that contribute to making a company what it is so important. And so, you know, I really encourage you to think about that, right? And schedule time away from the day-to-day of everything that you have on your plate, and set some time aside to say, you know, where is this company going? What do we want this company to be like, right? What do we want people to feel when they're in this company, and how are they going to describe it to others? Because doing it now is going to make a huge difference in terms of how it becomes later. So that's the end of my talk on the 2 subjects of performance and culture. But of course, I'm happy to answer your questions, and I guess we're also going to have time to speak individually.